Right. So last night I played the second game for the San Gabriel New Year's tournament. And this one I won, so that's nice. Um, so this game was against a lower rated player. So he was rated 1422. Um, my first game was against a 1924. But comparing the two games, like this one actually I feel like was almost harder, just in terms of me, because I was actually I had an advantage early on. Um, but I tried to make sure that I still continued to play the best moves every time. Like I wanted to have, I wanted to have from going from a winning position to actually winning the game. Which takes a lot of work. There's many places along the line where it's easy to mess up. There's actually a couple places where I did mess up and my opponent didn't take advantage of it. Even though I did think a lot. Like on a lot of my moves, I would think, 10. I think one move I thought like 12 minutes, like, so I took my time, even though I'm playing a lower rated player. It's always good to just play the game, play the game, not your opponent. Um, you know, play every game like you're playing a grandmaster, basically. You just want to be finding the best moves. Um, all right. So, this was a French winnower variation. And my opponent pretty much knew, all the moves here. So he's 9 years old. I should mention that probably. So this is a 9-year-old kid. She's very good. Already rated 1422. I think when I was 9 years old, I was still like 1100 or something. I'd have to check. But so this kid's good. And he knows all these moves. So after bishop b4, he immediately goes e5. That's the correct move. I go c5, a3. This is all, book lines. And then when I go queen a5, here he actually did think for a little bit. By a little bit, I mean like 30 seconds, but all the other moves were like instant reflexes. So I'm thinking he probably either hasn't seen queen a5 or, he's trying to remember what the right move is here. I don't know, but he eventually lands on a very obscure move. So he plays bishop b2. The normal move here that vast majority of games are played or bishop d2. As you can see here, over 4,000 games are bishop d2. The next most common is queen d2, and it's only 152 games. His move bishop b2 is played by there's 8 games in the whole database with bishop b2. So, either this kid really likes obscure lines or he played a weird move because at least in my opinion, the best continuation here is to just simply take the pawn. Um, because his pawn structure is ruined. I personally don't, what I don't understand, and maybe someone can explain this to me, is why in this position, I mean, again, there's only 8 games where this was played, but in none of them did Black actually take the pawn on d4. In 4 of the games, he goes queen a4, and I think queen a4 is actually the move that's suggested by the computer. Which is the move that you normally play when the bishop is on d2, right? So normally, um, if he goes bishop d2, the normal line here is to go queen a4, queen here, and king f8. This is the normal line for this. So oddly enough, bishop b2, it's saying just the same thing. But I would think just take advantage of the fact that you could just ruin his pawn structure. So I don't know. That's what I did. So I took. And then here, my original plan was to just go knight c6, just, get an extra tempo. Why not? Then I thought, should give myself the option of castling. So I don't know. I went knight e7, um, queen g4. And then here I thought for about, I'd say like 7 minutes or so. Um, and I came to the conclusion that I think that this is just a poison pawn. It's not worth taking. And I just decided to go knight c6. And I think that was the right decision. Especially because White's best continuation is just not a move a human would ever play. So, after queen takes, the only good move here, according to the computer, is so after queen takes, rook g8, queen takes h7, knight takes, is to go knight f3. Sorry, knight f3. This is the best move. Sorry, hold on a second. Don't know why that's red. Sorry, hold on. Sorry, that was actually to illustrate, go back a little. So after I take, I'm just showing that, knight f3 is the best move here, oddly enough, because, if he does something like knight e2, that's why I had this highlighted. Yeah. So then you got, knight c4 coming in, and, it's not great. He ended up going queen h5, which was not good. So realistically, actually, the only good move here is knight f3. And after he does that, he's got two isolated double pawn islands. It just, I don't know who would want to go into this line, basically. Um, to be fair though, he's got the two bishops. It's an open position. It's totally playable. And I am down a pawn. So, and according to the computer, this is actually slightly better for white. So I don't know, I might have misjudged going into this, except my opponent didn't end up doing knight f3, because I don't think most humans think to do something like knight f3 here and have their pawn structure, be this. But realistically, it's the only good move here. So he goes queen h5. And what's nice here, so at this point in the game, so I've thought a total of 10 minutes in the entire game, where the move I spent the most time on so far was deciding to go knight b6. So just to go back real quick, this move here was kind of like a key move. Took a long time and decided, okay, I'm going to give up the pawn. Okay. Then once we get to here, and he goes queen h5, I didn't actually see d5. So this is the move d4. So this is the move that I played. I didn't actually see this in advance. It's just once I got to this point, I immediately saw the move, and it's a good move. But I mean, my instinct just going into this was that regardless, without even, that nice move, that this is just good for me. I think it is. I don't know if the computer suggests anything other than d5, or sorry, d4. But I am curious to see what else the computer might suggest here. Yeah, I mean it's just saying d4. So, yeah. So I go d4, which is very nice because it's protecting the knight. The queen's protecting the knight now. I'm threatening to take this pawn. And if he wants to save that pawn, he's got to go knight queen h3, and this does not turn out well for him. Now here I did make a mistake though. So I went knight d5, which seems like a perfectly good move. However, after knight c2, knight c4. Well, sorry, let's go back a little bit. So in this position, knight d5 is not necessarily a bad move. It's just that I had a much better move. So what I want to be doing here is I should continue development. Like the logical move here is to go bishop d7. And for some reason, I just thought, knight d5 made more sense because, I'm just immediately attacking this pawn. But this is a mistake that I often make. I'd say like 9 times out of 10, the best thing is always to just keep developing your pieces. Moving the piece twice in the opening, there's always exceptions where, sometimes there's just a really good move and it involves moving your piece 2 or 3 times. But as usual, bishop d7 is the best move here by far. And the reason is, this is the continuation. So knight e2, then knight c4, right? So he's got to go knight e2 to protect this pawn. Because, if he doesn't, I got rook c8 coming in, I got castles coming, he's got to, eventually protect that pawn. But then I come in with knight c4, bishop c1, And now I, maneuver my bishop to a really nice diagonal here. This is a very nice diagonal here. Oops. Oh no. Sorry, hold on. Queen G7. I always have to mess up somewhere here recording these. Um, let's go bishop. Okay. Yeah, so like this is just a nice diagonal to be on, right? Um, and then knight d4. And here's the idea I missed. That eventually, I want to get my queen to e5 because then it's protecting this h8 square. And this is actually forced. He just loses his queen. Um, a queen for a rook and a knight because he takes it, I take, and then he takes the knight. But I am winning here. So anyway, bishop d7 is nice because it's developing the pieces and it's just making things like this possible, right? So by doing this, I'm moving my pieces to better squares, making this possible, like this ability to trap the queen, right? Because this bishop is on the square, right? It's guarding this. So when I go, rook here, this queen can't move here, can't move. I can't move to g3. Interesting. Hold on, let's check that. Queen g3. Ah, right. Queen takes g3. And if he takes with this pawn, I take the bishop, right? And if he takes with this pawn, I take the rook. Yeah. So yeah, these ideas I missed, but yeah, so like just that's why usually a good position, good moves and winning attacks, like they just flow from good positions, having your pieces in good places. So this bishop's really nice here. So getting it out there as soon as possible, going bishop d7, that's the best move here. And I went knight d5 in this position. Um, trying to like immediately, put pressure, but again, it's better to develop your pieces if you can. Okay, so knight e2. Now I go knight c4. Um, bishop c1, pawn e5, discovered attack on the queen, queen d3, and here's where I actually made a real mistake. Okay, so my knight's under attack here, right? So I need to do something about that. And I just figured, okay, I'll just go knight d6. The problem with that is that there's a really nice tactic here that I missed. If I go bishop e6, sorry, I go bishop e6. If he takes the knight, I go knight e3. And he has to go back here, and then I go bishop f5, and I win the queen. If he goes like queen d2, then I just got knight c2 check, king here, and then I take the rook. Yeah, like this is completely winning. So I just totally missed that tactic. So I did not play bishop e6, and instead I played knight d6. And he plays knight g3 here, which honestly should have a question mark next to it. Do that. Because he should have gone bishop d2. So basically, I could have been losing here. So up until this point, I think I've played it pretty well. I was willing to give up the pawns on g7 and h7. I think I've gotten into, pretty good game. My pieces are pretty well placed. Again, my bishop isn't on d7. That's not good. But, I played pretty well up until this point. However, if he had played bishop d2, he is actually better here. Just looking at what happens. In my mind, I think I looked at bishop d2 and thought like, oh, I'm just going to go bishop f5. But I forgot he just takes the pawn and this bishop's attacking the queen. Like I can't do that. Um, so I'm just giving him, time. Like I really need, this square for my rook would be good, for instance. You know, I anyway, so I really lucked out here. Like he should have gone bishop d2, and this game would have gone completely differently. But he went knight g3, and now I go bishop d7. Um, oddly enough, the computer actually suggests let me take this off. The computer suggests bishop e6. It's hard to tell over the board like which of those two moves is better. So I'm not really sure. I don't think it's much better. So I'm gonna go into that. Um, but yeah, so now he plays bishop d2, but now it's too late, right? Um, so go pawn takes, right? So before, when his knight was still over here, it was also protecting this pawn, but he moved his knight to g3. So um, takes bishop e3, and then I played f5 here, which I think is a pretty good move. So the computer, if you know, if you run the engine on this, its first instinct is to just castle queenside, which is a perfectly good move. But if you let it keep thinking for a while, just like kind of with a person, like you might have your first instinct, but then if you look at it a little bit longer, you might find a better move. The computer actually does suggest pawn f5. So I think I did find the best move here. Um, I just think it's more active. So it is, approximately the same in terms of, how the computer evaluates it. So, it's kind of this. Yeah, like I mean, it's almost completely winning, like minus, -1. I think if you castle, it's also around that. But this is a scarier move for white to have to face. So, I prefer this. Um, but it's also a little riskier. You have to make sure that this works. So after rook d1, which is the best move here, which is why I'm saying my opponent's, he's not bad. Like he's finding strong moves. But I go bishop e6, protecting this knight. He goes knight e2. I go pawn f4, bishop c1. Now I castle. He goes f3. And now I go knight f5. So this is another example. So I thought a good amount of time. I thought about 5 minutes. Um, and I believe knight f5 is in fact the best move here. For some reason the computer's giving it a question mark. That's weird. Didn't do that before. I mean, I know it suggests queen c5. I mean, according to the computer, if you go queen c5, the evaluation is -4. And then once you go knight f5, you're at -4. Yeah, there's no question mark here. I don't know why there's a question mark. It's just as good. Um, if anything better. Yeah. So knight f5 is a nice move because I'm trying to get either knight over here. So if he trades it, I still have a knight here. So this knight, either knight coming to e3 is just good. He goes knight e4, knight f to e3, takes, rook b1. So good move on his part. Got to try at least. I could always blunder checkmate. And I thought for a while here, I thought about some bad moves. Which again is another reason, like when you're playing these long games, like this is a 90-minute game, you have to take your time. You should try to realize like when you're in like a really key position, take your time. Like this is really important. I think at first I thought about like bishop d5, which is not a great move. Um, I'm still winning here, but but rook d7 is it is stronger. If you look at the evaluation here. Um, king f2, now queen c5, right? So he can't just simply go like king g1 because then, well, this is checkmate, right? No, it's not checkmate. I don't know. He's very lost here. It doesn't really matter. Um, yeah, I mean, I would just do this. Let's see. Well, no, just knight takes c2 check. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's right. And then you just win a knight. Um, so you can't do that. So he tried just going back to king e1. I doubled my rooks, and now he just gives up the knight because that's all he can do here. I don't think he has anything else. Yeah, the computer says to go knight d4. So I take. Let's get this out of here. Queen takes. And now this nice little in-between move, so instead of just taking the queen right away, I take the check, take this with the knight, and it's over pretty quickly here. So go check, push the pawn, check, check, and then mate. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this game wasn't easy by any means. Just to kind of sum this up, you know, at this point in the game, um, is a big decision deciding if I want to give up this pawn or if I want to castle, you know. Be good to see what the computer says. Um, yeah, I mean the computer suggests a few different moves here, but like one of them is to go knight g6. Another one is to castle, but going knight c6, um, you know, pretty much it's all the same. It's just a matter of your preferences. If you don't like having to deal with, you know, giving up two pawns, castling here is perfectly fine. Um, Still evaluates it kind of the same thing. It just kind of depends on what kind of a game you want to go into. Um, but to me, I just preferred to go into this. It just turns out the only good continuation here, like I said, is if he goes, knight f3, which is not a logical move that a person would play. So anyway, so that was my game. So yay, I won one. Maybe by the end of this tournament, I'll be above 1700. So I mean, I lost my first game that was to a 1924. And I beat a 1422. So I don't know if I play somebody 1700 or higher and win, my rating will finally go up and it won't be 1700 anymore, which would be lovely. But yeah, so have another game next week. Looking forward to posting it.